Energetic debt and spiritual inheritance. How unresolved. Spiritual or energetic debts are transferred, like unpaid bills, to descendants. A generational curse is not always the result of a single catastrophic act or one explicit spiritual agreement. Often, it's the accumulation of energetic debt, the unfinished business, unpaid spiritual accounts, and unresolved relational obligations of your ancestors passed down the line until someone pays in full. This is what I call spiritual inheritance. Not the blessings, wealth, or wisdom that ancestors may leave, but the unsettled debts that become the default bequest for each new generation. Understanding energetic debt. Energetic debt is the lingering consequence of an act, agreement, or omission that left a spiritual imbalance. If a blessing or position was taken unjustly, the imbalance demands restoration. If harm was inflicted without repentance or reconciliation, the weight of that harm lingers. If a contract, whether spiritual, financial, or relational, was entered into but not fulfilled, the bill comes due later. Think of it as a spiritual ledger. Whatever remains unpaid, unhealed, or unreleased doesn't vanish with time. It waits for the next available descendant to shoulder the responsibility. How spiritual inheritance differs from physical inheritance. Physical inheritance is tangible: money, property, heirlooms. Spiritual inheritance is unseen, but just as real: patterns, agreements, debts, and blessings. Key differences: physical assets can be divided. Energetic debt is collective. All descendants share the energetic load unless it is resolved. Physical inheritance can be refused with paperwork. Energetic debt requires active severance and restoration. Physical wealth can coexist with spiritual poverty if the energetic debts undermine peace, health, or stability. How energetic debts are created. 1. Unpaid moral debts. When ancestors took from others land, money, opportunity without restitution, the imbalance remains in the spiritual ecosystem. Example: a great-grandparent cheated a business partner out of their share. The financial advantage gained might have elevated the family materially, but it also created a debt of justice. 2. Unfulfilled spiritual agreements. An ancestor vowed to serve, tithe, protect, or align with the spiritual path, then broke that vow. The breach remains active as a loose thread that successors are pressured to tie off. 3. Blood debts. Violence, betrayal, or death that was never reconciled creates an obligation in the unseen. Whether it was part of war, organized crime, or personal vendetta, the spiritual balance sheet records the harm. 4. Emotional and relational abandonment. Desertion of children, spouses, or community obligations often leaves behind a vacuum. That vacuum will pull resources, relationships, and energy from later generations in an attempt to balance the ledger. The transfer process. How debts pass down. Energetic debts transfer through bloodline agreements, contracts that specify the descendants will serve, repay, continue this alignment until the condition is met. Inherited position. If an ancestor was the holder of a role or title tied to an obligation, descendants are often assigned the position by default. Open portals. Unfinished spiritual or relational matters act like doorways. Until they are closed, anything attached to them has free passage into each generation. Case example: the price of stolen land. A 19th century patriarch secured his wealth by acquiring farmland after its original owners were displaced under false pretenses. Legally, the purchase was clean, but spiritually, it was theft. Generations later, the family's real estate ventures repeatedly collapsed just before profitability. Legal disputes consumed large portions of their wealth. Descendants experienced chronic instability in housing, frequent moves, foreclosures, or sudden loss of property. The energetic debt was simple. The land was taken in injustice. Until restoration or spiritual release occurred, the bloodline would experience instability tied to land. Signs you've inherited an energetic debt. Repeating resource loss gains are consistently drained by emergencies, lawsuits, or crises outside your control. Inherited obligations. Feeling an inexplicable duty to protect, provide for, or fulfill something you never agreed to. Debt mindset. Even without financial debt, you feel as though you owe the world, the family, or unseen forces. Patterned sabotage. Every breakthrough triggers an immediate reversal or unexpected setback. Why energetic debt keeps curses. Alive curses often use energetic debt as the legal anchor that justifies their presence. The curse points to the unpaid balance as a reason it has the right to operate. If the debt is unaddressed, breaking the curse becomes a temporary fix. The structure simply reattaches itself. This is why some people experience freedom for a time after deliverance, only to feel the weight creep back in. The debt was never cleared. Breaking the cycle. Clearing the ledger. 1. Identify the debt. Trace the family history for events of harm, injustice, or broken agreements. Ask, what might still be owed in truth, reconciliation, or release? 2. Name the agreement. Bring the specific contract or imbalance into the open. You can't cancel what you haven't named. 3. Offer restoration. This may be symbolic, donations, acts of service, spoken restitution, or literal, repaying money, returning property. The goal is to balance the energy in tangible and spiritual terms. 4. Renounce the binding verbally and spiritually cancel any inherited obligation that is unjust, ungodly, or no longer aligned with your purpose. 5. Close the portal seal. The spiritual and emotional openings that allow the debt to pass down, ensuring it cannot reattach. The liberation effect. When energetic debt is resolved, resources flow without constant loss. Relationships stabilize. The sense of obligation and heaviness lifts, replaced by clarity and choice. The curse loses one of its most powerful legal anchors, making it far easier to dismantle the rest of its structure. Hi, I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and what you just watched is part of my signature program, the Chosen One series inside School of Soul. This series is not just a course, it's a blueprint for those who know they were different from the start: the black sheep, the scapegoat, the truth teller, the cycle breaker. Inside, you'll discover the family roles playbook, the golden child, the scapegoat, the enabler, the lost child, and how to finally step out of the part you were cast in without consent. How the black sheep becomes the goat, turning rejection into radical transformation and leadership. How to break generational curses and rewrite ancestral contracts so the pain stops with you. And how to recognize and escape modern forms of spiritual and technological targeting, from gang stalking to synthetic synchronicity. This isn't just about survival. It's about awakening, about reclaiming your voice, your lineage, and your destiny as one of the chosen ones. Click the link below to access the full series now, because the role ends the moment you decide it does, and the real script begins with you.